Hi, my name is Dee Dee Rand. Welcome to my blog called My Yellow Raincoat. If you haven't tuned into seasons 1, 2, and 3, I hope you will, and you'll see how I connect a yellow raincoat, a shiny black hat, and black galoshes to the lessons in my classroom. Even though I taught 8th grade English, the blog is about the life lessons that I taught, the hundreds of letters that I have received from students, what they think is important, and the lessons that had the biggest impact on their lives and the decisions and choices that they make. Okay? Today's lesson is going to be about being the role model, because teachers are a role model. Now, the teachers would meet in their teacher's room, their lunchroom, on a daily basis. It's very important. It's not gossiping. It's very important to talk about the kids, see who's sick, who needs homework, who's not doing well, which parents need to be called in, who's going to be who's going to be going to this event to support the kids, and who's going to that event to give support. So we really work together. Now, one of the things that we also did was we would share stories about things that did happen with kids in class, and so we could get feedback from other teachers on how we handled it. So one of the teachers told us that she was in the middle of teaching, and all of a sudden this young man blurts out, "You're an imbecile." Oh my gosh, what did you do? Oh, I called security. I had them come and get him. He sat in the principal's office the rest of the day. I called his mom. He has 5 days of lunch detention. He has to write a letter of apology. And I went, wow, that must have been so hard to stand up there and take that, to listen to that. That's hard. And then as I walked away, I thought, what would I have done in that situation? How would I have handled it? Well, a week later, I was in the middle of teaching, and I was teaching grammar. We have a grammar book. It was a lesson on punctuation, and each page was like 25 examples that the kids had to complete. And I'm required by the district to teach this book. They ordered it for us, and I had to teach it. It's not very much fun. I tried to make it interesting, but it's really not that much fun. So one of the young ladies in the front row, in the middle of my teaching, blurts out, "I gotta get out of here. This is so boring." I can't believe that you just said that. Really? This is what you think? And you thought that you should just blurt that out right in the middle of the lesson? "I can't help it. This is boring. I have to get out of here." And I said, "Well, do you think you're hurting my feelings? I'm just wondering. Do you think that you're hurting my feelings? I mean, now all the kids are looking, right? And I'm the role model, right? How am I going to handle this? Am I going to go on the defensive or what?" Well, the kids started blurting out, "I love this class. This is my favorite class. Miss Rand's my favorite teacher. She makes this so much fun. I love this class. I don't know why you said that to her." What I wanted to say, "Oh, you're all such little darlings. Thank you so much for coming to my defense." But I didn't, because I needed to deal with that young lady and not have all of these kids in this class be against her like that. And she's like, whoa. I told her to meet me out in the hall. That's my spot where I talk to kids that I don't want everybody else to hear. And I'm sure that if I would have opened the door really fast once I was out there, I'm sure they'd have glasses at the door listening, trying to listen. They all thought probably that I would react like that other teacher. So I said to the young lady, I said, "That really hurt my feelings. I know that grammar is not the most interesting part of this class. The books are great, the poetry is great, the essays are great, the writing that we do, those are also interesting. It's just difficult to make, where to put a comma, that's so interesting. But you know what? I'm going to try. I'm going to try to figure out a way to make it more interesting." And the young lady said to me, "It's not you, Miss Rand. It's the kids. First of all, I hate school. My mom makes me come. And it's the kids. I don't like the kids. I hang out with older kids." So I said, "Really? Well, now let's see. You're 14 now?" "Mm-hmm. And how old are the kids that you hang out with?" 15, 16? A lot older, I see. Are they from the high school? And I said, well, there isn't anything that I can do about the kids, but I will definitely try to make these grammar lessons more interesting. And between you and me, they are kind of boring, aren't they? She giggled and I giggled, and we proceeded to go back in the room. Of course, all the kids wanted to know what happened. That wasn't up to me to tell them, that was up to her to tell them. Now, stories never end right there. We got that resolved. I chose to be kind instead of right, because I had every right for her interrupting the lesson like that to take some disciplinary action, but I decided not to. I really wanted to get to the bottom of this and why she would blurt that out. So let's fast forward a month. I was now teaching diarrhea of Anne Frank. So in order for students to know about diarrhea of Anne Frank and to know the real meaning about why a family would go into hiding for 2.5 years, never so much as step foot outside, not even for a second, what was the Holocaust all about? So I gave them a lot of information, pre-reading information about the Holocaust, about my family, members of my family who died in the Holocaust, how I myself personally had faced anti-Semitic comments. And other kids, they talked about their families and what was going on. And it was a very somber day when I was talking about the Holocaust. And a lot of the kids I thought they would know more about it coming into 8th grade, but they really didn't. And a lot of it was very eye-opening to them. So the next day, there's a big yellow envelope sitting on my desk when I came back from lunch. I had no idea what it was, and I opened it up, and it was addressed to me, and I opened it up, and I took out this typed 3-page letter. And it was from my young lady. This was so heartwarming to me. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read a good portion of it so you can really see what a good heart she has and what she wanted to say to me. This was a message addressed to me. This is a personal letter to me. Dear Miss Rand, her family had gone to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And so she was writing to me about it. And here's what she said. As my family was walking through, they had one of the actual ovens the Germans would burn the Jews in. One room was filled with shoes. Just shoes, hundreds and hundreds of shoes that were stolen from the Jewish people. There were all sorts of different shoes, big ones, small ones, women's shoes, men's shoes, and even baby shoes that were only 2 or 3 inches long. In another room, it was filled with a ton of different family photos that were found. On the wall, they showed clothing that had the yellow stars sewn on them. That was something I had shown them pictures of. One room had a big dictionary of all the different registrations. Before the very end, they showed a short movie, and when it was over, I walked out crying. Across the hall was a really big room that was all quiet. And in the middle was a big box-type thing that was at least 4 feet by 4 feet, and it was filled with ashes. Around the side were a ton of candles you could light. I lit one of the candles because I'm family friends, and one family that is Jewish, and she had relatives that died in the Holocaust. 2 days after I was there was a shooting inside before you had to go through security, and 2 security guards were killed. A couple of years ago, my family and I watched Schindler's List. As I watched it, I didn't stop crying, and a couple of times I had to go into a different room because I couldn't take it. What touched me the most was one part when an old Jewish man asked one of the soldiers that Hitler told him that he would let him go if he could find a job. So he asked the soldiers if he could shovel snow as his job, and they said yes. And as he was shoveling the snow, a German soldier walked up behind him and shot him in the back of the head. That's when I started bawling. No one deserves to be treated that way, no matter what. At the end of the movie, it had a list of all the people that Schindler had saved, and he still wasn't satisfied. He knew he could have saved more than the thousands that he did. And it showed how Jewish families from all over the world came and visited Schindler's grave. There would be a line so far back, and everyone laid flowers on top of his tombstone. My uncle went and visited Auschwitz, and he told me that he was speechless, and he could smell the dead bodies and the burned flesh, and that it broke his heart. What Hitler did to those people is unforgivable, and the foulest thing anyone could ever do to anyone. I know that I don't feel as much pain as you must, but I do feel it. Thank you for everything. You see, when I read this letter and I see all the effort that went into it and how she must have sat there and wanted every word and wanted to get this message out and let me know how much compassion she had and how she could feel my feelings, I'm so glad the decision that I made. She just needed to redirect some of her anger, not towards me, to talk to her mom and figure things out. This was like a family thing. What are you going to do about school and your friendships and everything? But I wanted to be a role model, and I didn't want to punish her for being a little mixed up right now and how to sort things out. I wanted to help her. I wanted to be the role model. So I called her up and I said, meet me out in the hall. We were going out in the hall for another chat. And during this chat, I thanked her so much for this letter. I told her how much I appreciated it, how I got teary-eyed reading it, and I just thanked her so much for identifying with my feelings and with Anne Frank and everything that was going on with the Holocaust. It was just unbelievable. But then I said to her, I know a lot of the other kids haven't been to the Holocaust Museum, and they may not get there. So I would really love it if you would read this to the whole class so that they would know what it's like at the Holocaust Museum. Would you read this to the kids? Big smile, just beaming. I came back in the room and I told the kids that she had written me this letter, and I wanted them to hear it. And so they got very quiet the moment she started. They were so quiet. They were such an attentive audience. And when she was done reading, everybody clapped. They were so proud of her and so thankful that she had shared that information. Teachers have choices, I'd say every minute, of how we're going to handle different situations that come up when you have 175 kids. And each situation is different. I can't say that I've never been faced with things, sometimes kids say things and you're just like gasping. You can't even believe what they have said. And I've had to call parents and I've had to give disciplinary action to things that students have done. But I always try to think, I'm the role model. I'm the adult. How should I handle this situation? Let me sit back and reflect for a minute, not just jump into things, but to really reflect on how I want to handle the situation. I am the role model. Thank you so much for listening to Season 4 of My Yellow Raincoat. Please watch Season 1, 2, and 3 if you haven't, and get back to me. Give me some feedback and let me know how you're feeling and what examples you like. And just remember that what happens in Rand's class should not stay in Rand's class. Thanks a lot. Bye.